This is Jay Rogers. I am the director of the Forerunner, and in this video I'm going to take another look at the Russia-Ukraine conflict, only this time looking specifically at the role of Christianity and how does Christianity play a role in the conflict itself. First of all, this is October 1st, 2022, and you're looking at a map of Ukraine the way that it stands right now. Actually, you're looking at a map of Ukraine and 5 annexed regions of Ukraine that are now part of Russia. We have the People's Republic of Lugansk, Donetsk, then we have Zaporizhia, Kherson, and Odessa, which has been claimed by Russia to be part of Russian territory since 2014. So they held a referendum in Crimea back in 2014. People overwhelmingly voted to join Russia. People in the West said that it was a sham referendum, and I don't know what that means exactly. If you take a poll of people in Crimea today, just independent polling shows that the vast majority of people still prefer to be part of Russia. There are no uprisings, there is no protests saying that they want to go back to Ukraine. And I suspect that the same thing is going to happen in these other republics as well. The further away that you get from the south and the east of Ukraine, the more nationalistic that Ukrainians become. And that's what we're going to look at in this video. How does religion play a role in that? Here is a heat map. I want to show you a couple of things. First of all, there's a couple of different important areas of things that are going on right now. One of them would be in the area of Krasny Liman, which is called just Liman in Ukrainian. And Ukrainians are saying that they have encircled Liman. There was a big offensive, or what they would call a counteroffensive, at the beginning of last month, and Russians withdrew or retreated from these areas. This is territories liberated from Russian forces is in this grayish blue color, and then everything in this pinkish red color are areas that Russia either controls or occupies. And so this is seen as a huge setback for Russia. I'm of a little bit of a different opinion. I think that the publicity-wise it looks very bad, but practically Russia has to first secure territories that it already controls. And that would be the rest of Donbass, which is this area right here, the rest of Zaporizhia, which is this area on a little bit west of the Dnieper River, the city of Zaporizhia itself, and then the rest of this territory. They control more than half now. They control more than 90% of Kherson, more than 90% of Lugansk, and then they control most of Donetsk as well. So in my opinion, those republics have gone to Russia, and they're not going back to Ukraine anytime soon, probably not in my lifetime. And I think that that's something that gradually people are going to get used to. Probably the West may never recognize this, just like we didn't recognize the Baltic states as being part of the Soviet Union, but people know that they really are. That's how it's going to be. Where it goes from here is anybody's guess. Most media sources in the West are saying that Ukraine is definitely going to win. They're going to drive Russia out. They're going to drive Russia out all the way out of Crimea itself. And, Russia will be a pariah state, a defeated state. I heard one analyst yesterday say that the problem with Putin is that he doesn't understand that they lost the Cold War. So there are still people with that mentality saying that, this is the way it ought to be. Russia ought to be defeated. They ought to remain in that role as a defeated foe of the West. But obviously they have different ideas. So what's going to happen here, I believe, is that once all of Donetsk is secured, which will happen, that will happen. I don't know if it's going to happen by the end of the year, by the spring, or whatever, but that will happen within a year at most. Russia will declare that their mission was accomplished, that they liberated the Donbass. They also secured ethnic Russians, Russian-speaking people in other parts of Ukraine, and they'll call for a treaty, and Ukraine will deny that. They will not. If the current government is in place still, they will deny that. And then what Russia will do from there is that they will launch another attack on Kharkiv region, which is here. They controlled quite a bit of this before last month. And that area, especially the northern parts, are very heavily Russian-speaking, and there's some sympathy towards Russia. They'll also try to take Dnipropetrovsk, which is a very, very important area in the middle of Ukraine along the Dnieper River. And then also Mykolaiv and the Odessa region. And they will connect this area here, which is an independent republic, with Ukraine. And Ukraine will end up looking like something like a rump state. And I actually have a... I have some... This is the population density of Ukraine, and you see that like this area right here, Kharkiv is the second largest city, Kiev is the largest city, and then this area right here, Donbass, is very important, and essentially all the areas that you see, the heat map areas, with the exception of these right in here, are controlled by Russia. And so some people would say like, well, why did they, if they're doing so well, why did they retreat from this area, which is the Kharkiv Oblast? And basically there's just really not a lot there. I mean, there's the real the populated industrial center of Donbass is this area right here, which Russia already controls. Then we have Mariupol, which is very important. And then Kherson, which is right here. So from the very beginning, Russia had great success there, and what I want to do in this video is I want to go and I want to look at who are these people that live in these areas. What do they believe as far as their Christianity goes? Okay, and I put together these maps. Let's see if I can find a... Okay, this is religions in Ukraine, and I have a couple of notes here. If you notice that this is the purple is Orthodox, and then the red is Catholic. There are 3 regions of Ukraine that are heavily Catholic. Okay, the city of Lviv is right around this area. It's close to the Polish border, and at one time this was part of Poland. These areas here, not exactly on these lines, but close to it. And that's the reason why there are a lot of Catholic churches there, because the national church of Poland is the Catholic Church. This area here is called Uzhgorod. Uzhgorod and Mukachevo are 2 cities that I've visited. I visited the region, several different places. There's a mountain range, the Carpathian Mountains, that divides this area. And these people are very close to Hungary and Romania, and so a lot of them are Orthodox. And then this area here is on the border of Romania and Moldova, and that's also Orthodox, heavily Orthodox. So most of Ukraine is Orthodox, but what you notice when you get toward like the Kiev region and toward the east is you notice that the purple gets a little bit lighter, and the reason for that is because there are other religions. If you do the whole total, 74% of people in Ukraine are Orthodox, and then if you add another 9% Catholic, that's a lot. That's like 84% of the country is Catholic or Orthodox, and then you have Protestants and Christian not specified is 8.5 plus 0.9, which is about 9.5, close to 9.5%. So let's round up and say 10%. So close to 10% of Ukraine, 9.5%, are Christians, but not Orthodox or Catholic. What does that mean? Some of them just believe themselves to be Christians and are not affiliated with a church. They don't attend church. They don't necessarily agree with any denomination. And others are, Baptist, Pentecostal, Charismatics. And what's happening there is that Americans will say, well, Baptists, Pentecostals, and Charismatics mainly. There's some Adventists in there, some Reformed Christians along the Hungarian border and so on. But mainly, when I was in Russia and Ukraine, most of the evangelical churches founded after 1991 resist labels. There were Baptists and Pentecostals prior to 1991. But the newer charismatic churches, they don't go by charismatic, they don't go by Pentecostal. They are just Christians, or they call themselves believers. Like I saw this one video of a guy passing a Seventh-day Adventist prayer house in Mariupol, and he says, this is where some believers meet. And to the other, or the Orthodox people, they're believers. So it's kind of good in a way because they don't ostracize them as being like a cult or being they're different from them, but they recognize them as believers. And that's the reason why they prefer Christians or believers, is because the majority of the country is Orthodox. There was no Protestant Reformation in Russia, Poland, or the Ottoman Empire. Ukraine, different parts of Ukraine were part of the Ottoman Empire, Russia, and Poland, Lithuania, some along there were some historic Reformed churches along Hungary's border, but there was no real Protestant Reformation that took place in Russia. There were some Lutheran churches, some what we would call Anabaptists, kind of like the followers of John Huss, that kind of evolved into the modern Baptists in Ukraine and Russia, but they're very, very small, very, very few. And it's only been like in the 20th century and the 21st century that these have really exploded. So if you look at the total number of evangelicals in Ukraine, it's something like 9%. I think that if you look at, just people that are attending church, it would probably be less than that. It would probably be like 3, 4, 5% at most, maybe 3 or 4%. So it's not a lot, but Ukraine has the largest percentage of evangelical Christians than any country in Europe. And then Russia has the largest number. Like Russia has, like 2 to 3 million, something like that. And Ukraine's a smaller country, so that that 3 or 4 million is higher concentration. But so both countries have a lot of evangelicals, and they are the most evangelical countries in all of Europe. Okay? So this is another map. It pretty much bears out what the first one said. You notice that there's Catholics in these 3 oblasts in the west, that they're mixed in with Orthodox believers. Here, there's some Protestants along the Romanian border. I don't know what the deal is here. I know that Kiev has a lot of Protestants because of missionaries, and it's a very cosmopolitan city. And then you have a large percentage of Protestants. They call them Protestants, 5%, which I think is the accurate number. And that this map is, this is probably accurate. So what this tells you is that the southern part of Ukraine and the eastern part of Ukraine is the evangelical center. And these are the oblasts where the referendum was held. So I'm just going to show you. This is by region. Okay, this is a little census by region. And if you notice that, the religions by region, you've got, the center and the south and the east are very heavily Orthodox. In Donbass itself, the lowest number of Orthodox Christians. But look, 11.9%, 12% of the people in Donbass are what you would call just Christian. Okay, 2.5% Protestant, kind of similar to those other numbers that we saw before. And that's like much larger there's a larger traditional contingent of Protestants in the West, slightly larger, like by 1%. But in Donbass itself, the regions that broke away and joined Russia, this is where most of the evangelical church is, and it's not even it's not even close. You look at um, it's very extreme there. You have people that are just Christians, 11%. In the east, it's 8. In the south, it's 5. In the center, it's 6.5. In the west, it's 5. So this is like in the east and in Donbass, it's like almost double the other regions will say that they're Christians, just Christian, not Protestant, not Catholic, not Orthodox. Um, so that's how that goes. Most of the Catholics in Ukraine are what are known as Greek Catholics or Eastern Rite Catholics, and most of them are in the West. There are some Roman Catholics or Latin Catholics. They basically are in communion with the Catholic Church, but the rite is different. In other words, like the actual liturgy is different, and that's like a big deal over there. Okay, so interesting. All right, that's another map I'm going to show you later. So this is the same idea here. This is regional dominance of religion in Ukraine, and so this has to do with the split in the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. Actually, there was a split in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church and the Kiev Patriarch, and the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the Moscow Patriarchate. So what happened was, I believe it was in 2014, there was a split where the West put sanctions on Russia because they took Crimea. And so in Crimea, you just had the Moscow Patriarchate. But then these other churches wanted to break away. So they went to this bishop in Constantinople, and they asked him, could we separate and form our own national church? And which they did. And so these are all Ukrainian. And there was actually a split in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church over which patriarch would they follow, the one in Moscow or the one in Kiev. So some places they have both, right? Some places they have only. And this is a big controversy. I'm not Orthodox, so it doesn't really affect me as much, but this is a really big deal over there. So among the Orthodox believers themselves, you see that, in the very east, you find the ones that are more attached to Russia and so on. Okay, and what they did with these middle regions is they really enforced this. Okay, they really enforce this. All right, so some places they have both, which are the green, like Mykolaiv. But it's interesting that in these two areas here, where probably a lot of people were used to the Russian rite or whatever. And it's basically, it's got, the rites are the same, but it's just allegiances. So it's a political thing. I'm not going to get into it too much. I don't understand it fully, but it's unfortunate that politics has to affect divides churches. Okay, so these are same ideas, parishes of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate that switched to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine Patriarchate. And this was between 2018 and 2019. Okay, so these are ones that switched. You see the ones that switched are more heavily in the West, and these are the, and not so much in the real Ukrainian nationalist hotbed, because that's mostly Catholic, but right along here, so the further west you go until you get into the Catholic territory, you get most people like going with the Ukraine, and then virtually none of them switched over in the east. Okay, this is the one I really like. This bears out what I'm saying more than anything else. I was actually in this area with a group of Christian teachers. They were basically there for a camp and to learn about teaching Christian ethics in in public schools in Ukraine, which is mandated by law, by the way. So you see that this is the Catholic area. There's very few evangelicals in this area. This area is very Catholic, okay? You go to the city of Kiev itself, which is right here. There's a lot of evangelicals. It doesn't show it on the map because it doesn't show that oblast on this one. But, look at where it says share of Protestant organizations out of the total number of religious organizations by oblast. This is not number of believers, but this is organizations. You see that in Zaporizhia and in Donetsk, there are a huge number of organizations. There are a lot per capita in Lugansk as well, but these areas are more sparsely populated. Okay, same thing is true. So you see that this is what I would call, the Bible Belt, the evangelical Bible Belt of Ukraine. Not like in America where virtually everyone's evangelical, but it's just it's got a lot. There's a lot going on there. And finally, this is what, this is no joke. I mean, I laugh again, but this is not really a laughing matter. This area here is known as Novorossiya, which is New Russia. This is Crimea. These 4 oblasts left Ukraine yesterday, and with Crimea, they're now part of Russia. What I believe eventually is going to happen is 1, 2, 3, 4. There will be 4 more that will join Russia before this whole thing is over. And also this area right here, which is known as Transnistria. And Transnistria is on the border of Moldova, between Moldova and Ukraine. And these people, it's supposed to be part of Moldova, but most of these people are not Romanian. They're either Ukrainian or Russian. And the people here are very conservative, and they didn't want to leave the Soviet Union, so they voted to stay in the Soviet Union. So essentially, this little sliver of land is legally what is left of the Soviet Union, even though the Soviet Union, not legally, but in theory it is, because legally the Soviet Union was dissolved. Okay, so this will probably become part of Russia. I believe that this area here, Galicia, will end up being divided up. Part of it will go to Poland, part will go to Romania, part will go to Hungary. And then what you'll be left with is this little rump state. And the rump state will either be supported by Russia or by the West or by both. And it's very unfortunate that had to happen, because what could have happened is that Ukraine could have just become federalized, where the oblasts could basically govern their own affairs. If you want to speak Russian here, you can. You want to teach Russian in schools here, you can, and so on. You guys can be Ukrainian over here. You can, but it's just this is the way that things are. Okay, so this is another map. This shows you the division by year. Okay, this was part of Russia. The southern part was until the Middle Ages was part of Byzantium, and then the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire did not belong, and there was no country named Ukraine. Okay, the people were Ukrainians. They spoke a dialect of East Slavic, which was Ukrainian, but there was no country of Ukraine. They were folk people. So this is like the oldest part of Ukraine, and then these parts were added to Ukraine, which was under the northern part was under the domination of the Russian Empire. And then in 1922, when the Soviet Union was formed, Russia ceded this land to Ukraine. After World War II, the lines in Eastern Europe were drawn. The Soviet Union gained control of this area, which was Poland, Hungary, Romania, and they added it to Ukraine, which was the Ukrainian Republic, which was part of the USSR. And then Russia also very strangely added Crimea to Ukraine in 1954. And this was during the time of Khrushchev, I believe. And one theory, it's very strange that happened. No one knows exactly why it happened. but one theory is that you know the United Nations was formed in 1948, and or what year was it? I don't remember, 1949, and that they thought that if they added territory to Ukraine, that Ukraine could get representation as a country or as a republic in the United Nations. That obviously didn't work. So in other words, like the Soviet Union would have more than one vote because they had all this population. So they wanted to increase the population to whatever it was at the time. Okay. And this is the Novorossiya is New Russia. And this was like the area of Russia that was added to Russia when the Ottoman Empire ceded this land to Russia. This is Mala Russia, which is called Little Russia. Little Russia was part of the Russian Empire. And the other map kind of contradicts this a little bit. It says that this is Ukraine, but this wasn't really Ukraine, the country. Okay, Ukraine was really what's called Galicia, and Galicia was a district of Lithuanian Poland, the Polish-Lithuanian Empire, which kind of like took land back and forth between them and Russia. And this is Subcarpathian Russia, which is Romanian and Hungarian and a little bit of Slovakian here. And these people actually speak a language, some of these people, not all of them, but some of these people in this region speak a language called Ruthenian, which is another Slavic language, which is different from Russian or Ukrainian. All right, and so this is the map I showed you earlier. I think that this is, I'm not saying this is a definite deal, but it's a possibility that you could end up with, this part of Ukraine becoming part of Russia. I would have said, originally it was to make them a separate independent state that was not an independent state, either an independent state or a state or a group of states that had autonomy that Kiev would not be able to really influence that much. And that deal was never made. So that's the reason for the conflict now. Okay.